Welcome to the podcast, the king of the Octagon, Dana White. Dana?
How are you, Adam?
Good to speak to you. Was just talking to somebody yesterday about UFC 100 coming up and the Brock Lesnar fight. For those of you who have not experienced Brock Lesnar, he is out of a comic book. I mean, this guy really does. He looks like somebody drew a Viking and then gave him a haircut, essentially, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty of UFC is he's fighting a guy who beat him. And the way the guy beat him was through like a foot or leg submission, right?
Yeah, he knee barred him.
He knee barred him. So Brock Lesnar, a guy who looks really unstoppable. Essentially, it was like a Sherman tank and you pulled the coil wire off the tank and it couldn't move. That's really what it was. And that's Lesnar's only loss, correct?
Yeah, that's Lesnar's only loss. He's looking to avenge it. The crazy thing about Brock Lesnar is, he came from wrestling. He was the best heavyweight college wrestler in college. From there, they picked him up and brought him into the WWE, and he was there for years. Then he walked away from a huge contract with the WWE, and he went to play football for the Minnesota Vikings. Mm-hmm. And apparently he did really well, but the reason that he was cut, he made it to the last day of cuts, and I guess it was his age was the reason he got cut. So he decided he wanted to get into mixed martial arts.
Right.
He fought one fight in Japan, the Japanese organization, and won, and then came to me and said he wanted to be in the UFC. And I basically told him, listen, Brock, this isn't the place where you come to learn how to fight. You need to fight in all these other smaller shows and then someday get to he says, listen, I'm either good at this or I'm not. I either belong here or I don't. I want to come straight to the UFC. And the guy lost his first fight to Frank Mir, but was beating Frank Mir the entire fight and got caught in the knee bar. And since then, he's been on a tear. He's beat guys who've been in the game for a long time with a lot of experience, and he ends up knocking out Randy Couture for the heavyweight championship.
Yeah, that was an exciting fight, the Couture fight. In a way, I almost felt sorry for Couture because he's such a legend, and even though he's in amazing shape for a 45, 46-year-old guy. Well, first off, Brock Lesnar is a super heavyweight, and Couture is a heavyweight. And I don't know if anyone, they discuss it in boxing all the time. Should they have a super heavyweight division? Because now with the Klitschko's and the Lennox Lewises and people like that, these guys are 6'5", 6'6", plus, 250 plus, and they're going up oftentimes against guys that are 6'1", 215. So if you guys thought about starting a super heavyweight division, and if so, why not?
Yeah, no, because there's not enough big guys out there to create an entire division. And the reality is Randy Couture fought at 205 pounds at light heavyweight, but he started his career at heavyweight, and he chose to move back up to the heavyweight division.
Right.
He was in the light heavyweight division. He lost to Chuck Liddell twice by knockout, and then decided to move back up to heavyweight, fought 6 foot, what is he? He's like 6'11" or 6'9", Tim Sylvia, who weighs 265 pounds, and Randy Couture completely dominated him.
Yeah,
completely dominated him.
Yeah, that guy's a monster. I interviewed him, and no, it is amazing how size is an advantage, but not always. Not in this game, and that's kind of what's exciting about it. Although Brock Lesnar seems to use his size very well.
He does. Let me tell you what, this guy, like you said, he's 265 pounds. He's like 6'2", 265, and he moves like he weighs 155 pounds. It's amazing.
Well, what about steroids? Because they use it in obviously other sports check for it. And Lesnar, when you see that guy with his shirt off, it's like, holy shit, looks like he's juicing. Do you guys test for steroids?
Yeah, actually, we us in boxing fall under the same regulations. We're the only sports out there, the UFC and boxing that fall under, we get tested by the government. The government tests these guys. So every time they step into the ring to fight, they're tested for steroids by the government. And not just steroids, all kinds of different drugs. No other sport has that.
There was a boxer many years ago who had his belt taken away because they found out he had marijuana in his system during the championship fight. And I said they should have given him a second belt. That is not performance enhancing. That that is the one drug I wouldn't mind the guy I was fighting be beaked up on. So Brock Lesnar's clean. He just evidently has a crazy genetic hand dealt to him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. If you see pictures of him from when he was in college, you know what I mean? He was enormous in college and in high school.
And he's going up against the only guy on the planet that has beat him before. And why this sport is so exciting, because there's so many different ways to lose. I mean, a guy like Lesnar has a great wrestling game. He has a developing striking game. He's strong as an ox. But this guy has a great submission game. And he didn't even choke him out. He choked his knee out, and he had to tap out, right?
Frank Mir is probably the best submission heavyweight in history, you know. And the thing is with this guy, he's a big guy too. I mean, Frank Mir, weighs 255 pounds.
Right.
And when this guy grabs onto an arm or a leg or your neck, he's taking it with him.
Right. So this should be a really exciting fight. And then, by the way, it's UFC 100. It's 100. This is your 100th event?
Yeah. Well, we've done more than 100, but the pay-per-views are the ones that people number.
Right.
We tried to get away from the number thing a while ago at like UFC 33, but it just kind of stuck. People just kept calling them numbers. But we do fight nights on Spike TV and all these other things. So, this is more than 100, but it's our 100th pay-per-view.
One of the guys I was talking to yesterday, we were actually just talking about how this is about the biggest sport in Japan. And when you do pay-per-view, obviously you have a way of telling who's buying it up, what parts of the country, what parts of the world. Who is big in the world as far as buying these pay-per-views, and then who's big in the country?
Well, what's happening now is, we've been working on taking this thing global. And obviously, I don't know if you know, but we're the biggest pay-per-view provider in the world.
Really?
We're bigger than anybody. We're bigger than HBO Boxing. We're bigger than the WWE. And, we now just went out. We got into Canada. UFC 100 will air for the first time on Televisa, on free TV in Mexico to over 100 million homes.
Wow. So as far as Mexico goes, sorry to cut you off, but you'll do it for free in Mexico, sort of like the drug dealer gives you your first hit for free, right?
Exactly. Something like that. Exactly.
Once they get a look at Brock Lesnar, they'll put a few pesos down for the next pay-per-view fight. But this one, they get gratis, right?
That's how we feel. And here's my thing. And you're a big boxing guy too,
sure.
So and you're probably around my age. I'll be 40 this summer. And when I was growing up, I became a huge boxing fan because my uncles used to watch all the big fights on ABC's Wide World of Sports, and then there was USA's Tuesday Night Fights,
right.
And that's how I became a fan, and that's really how they built the pay-per-view stars of the 90s through all those shows.
Right.
And that's what I'm a big believer. Listen, when everything went to the pay model,
right.
All these boxing promoters got greedy, and they wouldn't give you good fights on free TV anymore. And our philosophy is we're going to give the fans, the fans buy, 12 of these pay-per-views a year. We're going to give them a bunch of great fights on free TV too.
Yeah, and again, you build the brand, you build the following, and you have people, it's like I said, when you go to the Hickory Farms, they give you a taste of the summer sausage. You like what you taste, and then you go in and you buy a couple of logs.
Yeah,
that's how business works. And so now, what about Japan? Will they watch 100 on pay-per-view?
Yeah, well, we see when you get, that's what's tricky when you go into these different territories. The United States is big for pay-per-view. Okay, there's a big pay-per-view market in the United States. There's a big pay-per-view market up in Canada. We're working on it right now. We're in the UK. We're in Germany. We're in 100 different countries on some form of television. And what we're starting to do now is take the live event to all these different places. And Adam, I'm telling you, I'm not just saying this because I'm the owner of this thing, but I'm telling you, it is the most exciting live sporting event you will ever see. So people think they like it on TV, but once they experience it and they go live, I'm telling you, they're blown away by the experience, and they go out and they infect another 15, 20 people.
And how do you guys? Yeah, obviously I know this sounds like a fucked out term, but it's electric when you're in the arena. It's absolutely insane, and obviously it's really the same vibe you have with a prize fight, but then you amp it up because there's so many other avenues. I mean, it's fists, it's feet, it's submissions, it's wrestling. It's all the electricity of a prize fight, and with a couple zeros put behind it. We had on this show a couple of weeks ago, we had Uriah Faber on this show, and he recently lost, probably because he broke his hand. Not sure if you saw the fight or not.
I was there. Yeah, I was there for that fight.
Now, he's not a UFC guy, right?
Right. He's the WC. We own the WC too.
Oh, so he's under your umbrella.
Yep. What we do is the UFC is 155 pounds up the heavyweight. The WEC is 155 pounds and down. It's the smaller guys.
I gotta say, the smaller guys oftentimes make for a more exciting fight because it's nonstop action.
Nonstop action. How about Uriah Faber breaks his hand, so he starts throwing elbows instead of punches, but throwing them just like punches. I mean, it was a great fight.
It was an incredible piece of improvisation when it comes to pounding people in the face, at least. And it was funny because, well, not funny, ha-ha, but at first, those of us who were just watching the fight, and I'm a fan of his, I just thought he was just throwing elbows because he was doing effective striking with a part of his body that didn't have a pad on it. And then it became clear after the 55th elbow he threw that maybe something is wrong with his hand.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch that fight, boy, that was a really close fight, and you kind of get the feeling that if Uriah didn't break his hand, and his hand definitely looked broken after the fight,
right,
that he may have won that fight. On the other hand, how do you set up a rubber match when a guy's lost 2 in a row to the same opponent?
Yeah, it's true. No, it's true. We always do. Here's our philosophy. We make fights that fans want to see. I mean, if the people want to see Uriah Faber fight Mike Brown again, why not? We'll do it. It's a great fight for both guys, and I don't disagree with you. It would have been an interesting fight to see what would happen if Uriah Faber had 2 hands.
Yeah, and we don't want to take anything away from Mike Brown because he won the fight, and there's nothing to say that if Uriah had a good hand, he would have won the fight. And also, he didn't break his hand in the dressing room. He broke it on Mike Brown's head.
Right.
So Mike Brown obviously is able to take a punch if a guy's able to smash his hand on his head.
No, he's a tough guy. Definitely a tough guy.
Yeah. So speaking of tough guys, the future of, let's say, Chuck Liddell. He's lost a few of his last fights. He's, I guess, retired. Is he coming out of retirement?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. You asked me. I just talked to him yesterday, and I think Chuck is looking at it right now. He's gonna take some time off, and when I say take some time off, he's gonna take a lot of time off. And he's going to think about it, and he says when he gets done thinking about it after taking some time off, he's pretty sure that he's going to be done.
And so you think he's retiring?
Yeah.
And how about Tito Ortiz?
I don't know what Tito's doing. I don't know. He's had a lot of time off too. He had some back problems, and I don't know what's going to happen with Tito.
As far as the sport goes, I mean, we've seen it grow so much over the last few years, and one day Tank Abbott is going to run into me at a Chili's and kick the shit out of me because I always use him as an example of it used to be brawler, bar fighter, tough man competitions, and now it's a full-fledged sport.
Right.
But I still feel like we're not even at the zenith of this sport yet, in the sense that the guys that you have fighting, Brock Lesnar's coming up July 11th. This guy was a collegiate wrestler. This guy played some football. This guy did a bunch of stuff, but he wasn't doing mixed martial arts from the age of 10 up.
Absolutely right.
5 years from now, you're going to have guys entering the octagon that have been doing nothing but mixed martial arts all the way through junior high and high school, right?
Adam, you know the fight business. You are 100% right, and that's what I always say. The guys like Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture and these guys came from one style and had to learn everything else. And what's starting to happen now is these mixed martial arts schools are popping up all over the world. And what's happening is when you and I were younger, your parents would put you in karate or taekwondo or something. These kids that are coming up today are taking mixed martial arts, and the level of athlete and these guys are just going to get so much better. And like you said, 5, 6, 7 years from now, these fighters that are going to be coming up are going to be amazing.
Well, it's sort of in a way analogous to women's boxing. When you would watch women's boxing back in the day, 8, 10 years ago, they frankly looked sloppy. Their form wasn't that good. They just looked like chicks throwing punches. When you see women's boxing today at the upper level, certainly they have form. Like they can box now. And
Right.
it just means they got into the gym when they were younger and started putting it into their muscle memory earlier, and thus a sport has arisen. And speaking of women, how about women in the octagon?
Yeah, here's my thing with that. Much like women's boxing when they started, there weren't enough good girls
Right.
to create an entire division. You had a couple of girls out there that were really good and were talented. It's the same thing in mixed martial arts right now. And I'll give you an example. I a few years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I was up in Northern California at this small show up there.
Mm-hmm.
I saw these two girls fight. One girl looked exactly like Randy Couture, okay?
Yeah.
Exactly like him, and fought just like him, too.
Right.
The other girl was this beautiful girl, who looked like she'd taken about 4 Taibo classes.
Right.
This girl beat the living shit out of her, man. One of the worst things I've ever seen. And that's the problem with the women's
Right.
mixed martial arts. You got one girl that's really good and a girl that's really not.
Yeah, when you got Mike Brown and Uriah Faber going at it, that is 51-49 or 50-50. I mean, that is just a Mexican standoff right there.
Oh.
Two guys, same strength, same size, same ability, and it makes for a great fight.
Exactly.
So you're just going to have to wait until more women catch up to the sport, essentially, because you don't want to put on subpar events.
Exactly.
And you're going to be opening a chain of gyms nationwide?
Right. Yeah, we teamed up with Mark Mastroff, who is the guy who started 24-Hour Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And he sold the business, and he was sitting around doing nothing. He contacted us and said, what do you think about building some UFC gyms? We love the idea. We love the concept. We'd always wanted to do it. You just want to do it with the right people. Well, he's definitely the right people.
And so UFC is a brand. I mean, you guys are going to have your own record label soon, right? I mean, Chuck Liddell for young lovers. It's just never going to end. There's going to be gyms. I'm sure there's supplements. There's drinks. There's power bars. It's all out there, right?
Well, no, we actually just launched UFC magazine too. It just came out this month. But no, I don't know if we're going to get into supplements and all that stuff. But through the gyms, there will be. Through the UFC gyms, there will be.
And I don't see any signs of this sport slowing down. To me,
Nope.
it's just going to grow. Human beings have an inherent interest in sort of combat and seeing who the best man is. Other sports are sort of limiting in the sense that you have that thing where it's like, wow, that guy's great with his hands, but a martial artist would take him out, no problem. This sort of, it settles the argument.
Right. No, you're dead on with everything you say. I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, if you look at how big this thing is right now, we haven't even scratched the surface of how big it's going to be here in the United States, let alone the rest of the world. Because as big as the UFC is, we're far from mainstream. And mainstream to me is, in your studio right now, if you walked out in the streets and started asking everybody what American Idol is,
right?
Everybody could pretty much tell you. Not everybody could tell you what the UFC is. So we have a long way to go here. And as far as other sports go, you're absolutely right. If you think about this country, there's nothing bigger in this country than the NFL. It's
right.
huge.
Right.
I don't care if you didn't watch one football game all season. Everybody watches the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Well, they've been trying to spend billions of dollars to break into Europe, and they
Right.
can't do it. They just gave up. You know why? Because nobody in Europe gives a shit about football. They didn't grow up playing it. They don't understand the rules. They're not invested in the teams. It's
Yeah.
like saying cricket's going to be big over here someday.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. And by the way, they already have a game called football. I mean, they kick a ball around. And there's just not enough black people over there to get it started, let's face it. But here's the point. Everybody loves the fighting. As a matter of fact, I would argue that our culture, our American culture, probably likes it less than certain cultures like Japan and maybe certain cultures in Europe. I mean, those guys go back a little further with it. We're pacifists compared to a lot of those guys with the samurai spirit and all that bullshit.
Yep.
So, I mean, this stuff, first off, they should eat this shit up with a fork and spoon in the Middle East.
Adam, here.
My God, we're going to have to stop them from fighting just to watch other guys fight for 10 minutes.
We're going, me and my partner are flying to Abu Dhabi next week because we're going to do a fight down there. Yeah,
we're good times.
Going down there to meet the Prince of Abu Dhabi and work out a deal over there. But check this out. Think about it this way, okay? At the end of the day, I don't care what country you come from, what language you speak, what color you are. I don't care about any of that stuff. At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and fighting is in our DNA.
Right.
We get it. The rules don't have to be explained to us. We get it, and we like it.
I agree, and that's why I think the UFC is going to just keep growing. And again, you know, with satellites, there's no borders anymore. It just doesn't matter. So who cares if you're getting $20 from a guy across the world or $20 from a guy next door to you? Either way, it's a great business model. I don't like to blow my own horn, Dana, but at the last UFC fight I was at, I couldn't walk 10 feet without stopping. The fans are in my wheelhouse. They're somehow the man show demographic or something. So, you know, maybe you toss Rogan out of there and you put the Ace Man up in the booth to do a little color commentary. Why not bring a little humor to it?
I'd love to do something with you.
Well, it would be my pleasure. Also, the video game, which is out, THQ video game, and the chain of gyms opening up soon. The automobiles, the feminine hygiene products. It's all the flooring. It's all going to be out there. It's all going to be UFC. And next time you're in LA, come out here and join us in person.
I would love to, buddy. Thank you. And you have an open invitation anytime you ever want to come to a UFC event. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. Dana White, everyone, from the UFC.